All right. Today is August the 6th, 2025, and we are looking at Bitcoin on the daily. We're going to do a sort of top down analysis for Bitcoin, and we're going to look at some of the key indicators that I'm watching as we're getting a bit of a relief bounce here for the bulls. So, first thing I want to point out on this chart, we're looking at daily, is this switch over to the regular scale. A lot of times I'm watching the logarithmic scale, which is a little bit different. But when you switch back to the linear scale, you can see that this trend line is still very much intact. As we extend out here, you can see this price action is really coming into the trend line, and it's also coming into this 50 period moving average support, which we mentioned in the last video. So I'm going to open this up and we'll drill in and really taking a look at the decision time that's coming up here for Bitcoin, um, you know, probably mid-August, if you're looking at this intersection of where the trend line support meets the trend line resistance. You can see that. So there's a pretty clear trend, downtrend here that we have to break out of in order for this chart to look really, really bullish, as it did back here as we broke out above the 50 period moving average. So you can see we're starting to get a few of these little orange daily candles, meaning we started to close below the 50. But here we are again closing a sort of green candle, getting back above the 50, which is critical support and must hold in order to push us up higher. So if this trend line actually were to break down, in my opinion, I think it would be a pretty logical next move coming to a 100K retest. So that's how critical this is right now for Bitcoin. We've been able to hold on to this base of support for the last 4 days, and the price is looking like it wants to drift higher and give another sort of retest to this previous structure resistance as well as this downward sloping trend line. And we'll have to wait and see. We can see that the daily volume is getting a little bit higher. We've seen 3 solid days, but still below the average volume that we see coming in here in this blue line. So we really need to see something like this on the daily, or like this, or even like this, where we get volume peaking above the average and getting above this, this 8.9 thousand. If you look at the average, roughly 8.9 thousand Bitcoins are exchanging hands per day, and we need to get that up higher to confirm a bull move. So we're looking for volume somewhere around here, around double that. Okay, so 20,000 Bitcoin, something like that. That would confirm a very bullish continuation, and we would be, one of the first ones to be able to spot that. But that's kind of what I'm looking at, guys, because it's very, very obvious structure that you can, spot pretty easily on the trend. 1, 2, 3, and this downward trend like that. So we can zoom in now and we can see how this price action is responding to this trend line. So here we see very, very clearly the bulls, right? Really defending this trend line, buying it here, pumping us up. Here's the 50 period moving average right here coming down. And we got up into that 50 period moving average and sold off right back into the trend line and pushed us up. And just today, we were able to clear a 4-hour candle above the 50 period moving average. So that's pretty bullish. We still need to clear these previous tops on the 4-hour chart in order to make a push higher. There's going to be heavy resistance around this 117,000 level. As we know, previous structure support will now become resistance. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the fixed range volume profile. And you can see still that point of control very much intact right there at around 117,000. So I would say the price probably wants to drift back up into this level, and we'll have to see this area battle out right here, whether it's going to be able to break to the upside and push towards 130K, or break down in this trend line and fall pretty quick back down into, perhaps $100,000 for Bitcoin. And then let me just pull out a few other things I wanted to mention. Just jumping back to the daily, very critical RSI coming in. We saw, the RSI get tested at this 50 level back here, June 21st. And you can see it held as support and we pushed back up into the overbought levels. And that was obviously a good time to sell. And that sold us back down. And bulls are trying now to hold on to this 50% level again. We can also see a bit of a trend line here on the RSI, which is very interesting. 1, 2, 3. So if we're going to push higher on the RSI, we need to see these next few days turn really bullish. And ultimately, we have this moving average on the RSI. Ultimately, we need to break above that moving average, which will signal as well that the buyers are coming back into the market and will give us, more confidence that the push higher is going to happen in Q3. All right. And we're going to be watching this RSI very, very closely. Such a reliable indicator that I've been following and watching for years. So that was one thing I really wanted to point out is right there on the 49% level on the RSI. So key level for bulls to hold. And here is the MACD. The MACD right now on the daily is pretty good, in terms of what you want to see in a reversal. We're starting to see these, the yellow candles start to turn orange, which means the MACDs are crossing over. As we've seen back here, it's usually a good indicator that the price is probably going to start to change directions. You really want to buy here and sell here. So here we are. It is looking like a pretty good buying opportunity on the MACD. Okay, so it's setting up in the bull favor, but you have to be very cautious of this trend line. If we break back below 115, we're going to dump to 110. And if we dump to 110, it's probably going to want to trigger a further sell-off towards 100K. All right, let's see what we're looking at on the 4-hour for the RSI. So you can see beautiful movement right down here into the oversold level. Pop back out, 50% resistance, broke above it, and now we're getting right above that 50% bear control. So very, very strong move on the 4-hour RSI. We did trigger a nice oversold right here. So if I just zoom in on the RSI, you can see right up here when we were hanging around like 85% on the overbought territory, we were signaling that perhaps this would be a good time to sell. And right around here, as this RSI came into extreme oversold territories, another indicator that this is a good time to buy. This would have been when the market was in peak, sell off, peak fear, and peak, um, you know, scary moments for the market, and that actually ends up being a very good buying opportunity. So that's how I'm looking at the RSI on the 4-hour. I have to say, with the volume coming in on the 4-hour as well, you can see we're getting above that moving average. Very, very nice to see that. But critical points right here and right here on the trend line are very strong signals that this trend line has to hold. Okay, so we're going to be watching this price action very closely for the next couple of days and weeks as we get into mid-August here. And hopefully we can break out of this structure and get above it, and we can set up for a very bullish, Q3 and Q4. But that's going to do it for today's video. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.